The market was alive with color and sound. Alien voices mixing with the shouts of traders, the smell of spices, oils, and strange fruits filled the air. Humans rarely walked here, and when one did, eyes always followed. The human walked slowly. Through the stalls, his clothes simple, his steps quiet. But something about him stood out. On his hand was a silver ring, small, shining in the sunlight. It caught the eyes of many, but most people ignored it, thinking it was only jewelry except for her. An elder alien woman, her skin marked with the lines of age and her eyes deep with memory, froze when she saw it. Her breath caught in her throat. Her hands shook. She pushed her way through the crowd, never taking her eyes off that ring. The human felt the stare. He turned his head and found the elder standing before him, her lips trembling. Her voice cracked as she whispered, Where did you get that ring?" The question was soft, but it struck like thunder. The busy market fell quieter. Nearby traders leaned closer. The crowd sensed something important. The human looked down at his hand. For a moment, his chest tightened. He did not answer right away. His eyes darkened, his mind pulled back into memories he tried to bury. The elder's voice grew stronger, more desperate. "Please, human, tell me. Where did you get that ring?" Children stopped playing. A fruit seller paused mid-shout. The crowd leaned in as silence spread through the air. The human's lips parted, but his voice refused to come, his throat dry. He clenched his fist around the ring as if protecting it. The elder took a shaky step closer, her eyes glistening. "I have seen it before, many years ago on the hand of my son." Her words trembled. "He never returned from the war." Gasps spread through the market. The alien crowd whispered among themselves, some covering their mouths, others staring at the human with wide eyes. The human's face paled. His heart beat like a drum. He felt the weight of the past pressing on him. He remembered fire, smoke, and screams. He remembered the cold night when the ring had been given to him, but he stayed silent. The elder raised her shaking hand, pointing at the silver band. "This is not just a ring," she said, her voice both strong and broken. "It carries a story, a life, a promise." The human's shoulders slumped. His silence was an answer of its own. The market grew heavy, every eye on him, waiting. Finally, the human whispered, his voice low but clear enough for the elder to hear. "It was given to me, not bought, not stolen." The elder staggered back, clutching her chest, her breath unsteady. "Then you knew him," she cried. "You knew my son." The human looked away, pain flashing in his eyes. His jaw tightened as he muttered, "I knew him, on the last night of his life." The elder's knees weakened. She grabbed the edge of a stall for support. Her tears threatened to fall. The market crowd buzzed like restless waves, whispers mixing with gasps. The story was only beginning, and everyone felt it. The human did not move. He stood frozen in the center of the silence, the ring catching the light, a symbol that carried more weight than gold. The elder's voice broke once more, trembling with both fear and hope. "Tell me everything," she said. "Please, I must know." The human lifted his head, his eyes heavy with sorrow. The story he had carried for years pressed against his heart, and for the first time, he realized he could not run from it anymore. The market held its breath. The elder stared into his soul, and the human prepared to speak words that would change both their lives forever. The market around them grew quieter. The voices of traders turned into whispers. The elder stood frozen, her hand still pointing at the ring, and the human knew he could no longer keep the truth buried. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling slowly. "It was many years ago," he began, his voice heavy like stone. "I was not a soldier, I was only trying to survive." The elder's eyes locked on him, her hands trembling, her heart racing. The crowd leaned closer. No one dared interrupt. The human's gaze drifted past the market, as if he could see the past replay before his eyes. The war had reached the forest, fires raged, machines tore the earth apart, screams filled the air. I ran, not knowing where to go. His words painted a picture that silenced every breath. "I found myself in the middle of a battlefield," he continued. "I hid among broken trees, trying to escape, but that was when I saw him." The elder's lips parted. her voice just a whisper. My son. The human closed his eyes for a moment as if the memory cut deep. He was young, younger than me. His armor cracked, his body weak, but his eyes still burned with fire. He fought against enemies closing in, and I could see he would not last. The elder covered her mouth, her shoulders shaking. I wanted to run, the human admitted. I was no warrior, no fighter, but something in me refused to leave. I grabbed a fallen branch, I threw rocks, anything to distract the enemy, and somehow he saw me. The crowd listened, spellbound. He fought until his last breath, the human said, voice low, and when the battle ended, when the silence came, he lay broken on the ground, his blood dark against the dirt. I rushed to him. I tried to help, but it was too late. The elder's tears slipped down her cheeks, her body trembling. The human looked at the ring on his hand, twisting it slowly. He smiled at me, even as the light left his eyes. And he reached for my hand, he pressed this ring into my palm and whispered, survive. Tell her I did not forget. Gasps rippled through the market. Whispers spread like fire. Some aliens wiped their eyes. Others stared at the elder with sympathy. The elder's knees weakened. She almost fell, but a young vendor caught her arm. He said that? She cried, her voice broken. He thought of me at the end? The human nodded slowly, his own voice shaking. Yes, he did. He spoke of you. He said his mother's face gave him strength. He begged me not to let his memory vanish. The elder clutched her chest, sobbing openly now. The crowd no longer cared about trade or bargains. Their hearts were bound to the moment. The human lowered his head, guilt burning inside him. I carried this ring not as treasure but as a burden, a reminder that I lived because he did not. I could not bring myself to forget. I could not throw it away, and yet I could not tell anyone, until now. The elder reached forward with shaking hands, her fingers hovering above the ring but not touching. This was his. It was truly his. Yes, the human whispered, his voice almost breaking. It was his, and I have carried his story through every day since. The market felt heavier than stone, every soul caught in the web of memory. The elder let out a sound between a cry and a sigh, tears streaming freely. For years I waited, for years I prayed to the stars, asking if my son died forgotten, and now I learn he died thinking of me. Her words pierced every listener. Even the hardest traders lowered their eyes in respect. The human clenched his fist, the silver band digging into his skin. I am sorry, he said. Sorry I could not save him. Sorry it took me so long to find the courage to speak. I feared your pain, I feared your anger, but I could not hide the truth any longer. The elder shook her head, her tears falling onto the dusty ground. You gave me back something I thought I lost forever. You gave me his last words, his last gift. And for that, human, I cannot hate you. The human's chest ached, his throat tight. The crowd exhaled as if they had been holding their breath. For the first time, the elder stretched out her trembling hand. This time her fingers brushed the ring gently, as if touching the memory of her son through it. The human did not pull away. He let her feel it. He let her remember. The market had become a temple of silence where war, grief, and memory stood together. The elder's tears sparkled in the sunlight, and the human's eyes lowered in sorrow, both bound by the past, both chained to a memory that would now never be forgotten. The elder stood trembling, her hand brushing the silver ring as if it were holy. The market around them remained frozen in silence, every eye fixed on the human and the woman. Her tears did not stop. But through the sorrow, something stronger began to rise, a truth she had carried for years, a secret she never dared to share. My son, she whispered, her voice shaking. He was not supposed to fight, he was too young, he was never meant for the front lines, but he went anyway because of me. The crowd stirred, murmurs rising like restless wind. The human lifted his head, confusion and pain flashing in his eyes. The elder's voice grew stronger, though it cracked under the weight of memory. When the war began, our leaders demanded every able hand. My son wanted to protect me. He swore he would fight in my place. I begged him not to go, but he would not listen. Her eyes closed. Her body swayed slightly as if the memory itself drained her. He left me with words I can never forget. "If I do not fight, who will protect you, mother?" The human's chest tightened. The ring in his hand felt heavier. "I thought I would see him again," she continued, her tears flowing freely. But days turned into months, and months into years. Every night I sat by the door, waiting for his shadow to return. Every morning I woke to an empty house, and still I hoped. Her voice cracked into sobs. The crowd lowered their heads. The silence became unbearable. The human took a step closer, his voice soft. "You carried that pain alone, all this time." Elder looked at him, her face broken yet strong. No one wanted to speak his name. They told me he was gone, but I refused to believe, because I had nothing left but hope. "And now you stand here, with his ring, with his last words, and I can no longer deny the truth." Her knees buckled. She nearly collapsed, but the human caught her arm gently, supporting her. The market gasped at the sight. An elder leaning on a human, something rare and unthinkable. The woman's trembling hand gripped his tightly. "There is something more," she whispered, her voice low, almost fearful. "Something I never told anyone, not even my family." The human frowned, unsure, but he nodded, urging her to continue. Her voice dropped into a broken whisper. "He was my only son, the only child I had. And yet, he was also the last of his bloodline. My family carried a mark, a secret duty, passed through generations, and he carried it with him into that war." The crowd gasped. Whispers filled the air, but none dared interrupt her. The human's eyes widened. "A duty?" he asked, his voice cautious. She nodded, her tears shining. "Yes, a duty older than the war, older than even our empire. It was his burden and mine before him, but he never lived long enough to fulfill it. I feared the secret would vanish. With him, and now standing before me, you hold the proof he did not die forgotten." The market shivered with unease. The secret hung heavy in the air. "What was the duty?" the human asked softly. The elder's voice wavered. "He carried knowledge of the old ways, songs and stories forbidden by the empire, truths that could change how our people see the past, truths buried in blood. He swore he would protect them, and he hid them from those who wanted them destroyed." The human swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking deep. "And he told me to survive to tell you," he whispered, realizing at last that the soldier's final gift was more than just memory. It was a bridge to a secret too heavy for one person alone. The elder sobbed but nodded, her hands clutching, the ring as if it were a key. "I feared I would die without ever hearing his final words, and now I know he thought of me. He held on to our secret until the end, and through you, he has returned it to me." The human lowered his head. Guilt still etched across his face. "I wish I could have saved him. I wish I could have brought him back to you, but all I carried was this ring, and now I see it was more than a symbol. It was his entire story." The elder looked at him through tear-filled eyes, her lips trembling. "You carried my son's last breath for all these years. You bore a pain that was not yours, and you honored him. In silence, I cannot hate you, human, not when you gave me back the truth." The crowd wept with her. Strangers moved to comfort the elder. Some bowed their heads toward the human, respect shining in their eyes. The elder stood straighter, though. Her body was frail. "This ring belongs with me, but so does the memory. And now you are a part of it too, human. Whether you like it or not, you are tied to my bloodline." The human's throat tightened. He did not know what to say, but in his chest, a strange warmth rose. For the first time since that night, the burden of the ring felt lighter. The market held its breath, waiting for what would come next. But in that moment, all that mattered was the truth shared between a grieving mother and a human who had carried her son's story across years of silence. The human stood in the middle of the silent market, the elder's words echoing in his mind, her secret, her grief, her hope, all of it pressed down on his shoulders, and the weight of the silver ring burned like fire against his skin. For years he had hidden it. For years he had tried to forget the night he received it. But the truth was, he could never escape. Every time he looked at the ring, Every time he felt the cold metal against his hand, the memories returned. He saw again the battlefield, the smoke rising into the dark sky, the cries of soldiers echoing in the night, the broken armor, the smell of fire and blood. He remembered the alien soldier's face, young yet brave, weak yet smiling even as death closed in. The human clenched his fists, his voice heavy as he spoke to the elder. I was not meant to carry this. It was never mine. And yet I kept it. I kept it because I could not let it go, because every time I tried, it felt like betrayal. The elder stared at him, her eyes filled with sorrow but also understanding. The crowd listened, the air still and heavy, as if the entire market waited for his confession. I lived when he did not, the human continued, his voice cracking. I ate while he starved. I walked while he lay broken. I breathed while he gave his last breath, and every day since then I have asked myself why. His words pierced the silence, and the elder trembled, her tears fresh. The human's eyes lowered. I am no hero. I am not strong. I was a coward. That night I wanted to run, but I stayed, and because I stayed, he gave me this ring. He gave me his final words, and I have carried them like chains ever since. The elder's lips trembled. She reached toward him but stopped halfway, as if afraid to touch his pain. The human pressed the ring against his chest, his eyes burning. Every night I wake with the sound of his voice. Every dream shows me his eyes. Every sunrise feels stolen, as if the world gave me life that belonged to him. The crowd shifted, some covering their faces, others wiping tears. The elder whispered softly, You carried more than metal. You carried guilt. Yes, the human said, his voice trembling. Guilt that never left me. Guilt that I did not deserve to live. Guilt that I could never give this ring back. I feared you. I feared what you would say. I feared you would curse me for failing him. The elder's tears fell, but her voice grew stronger. And yet you still carried it. You could have thrown it away. You could have buried it, but you did not. You kept it safe. The human's voice shook. Because if I lost it, I would lose him, and I could not let that happen. I could not let his memory vanish, even if it meant breaking myself every day. The elder stepped closer, her hand shaking as she touched his arm. That is not weakness, human, that is devotion. You honored him even through your pain. The human closed his eyes, his shoulders heavy. But I did not tell you sooner. I waited too long. I let you suffer in silence, and that is my sin. The elder shook her head. No. The sin was not yours. It was the war. It was the world that took him from me. You were only a boy carrying a burden no boy should bear. The crowd murmured in agreement, their hearts moved. The human opened his eyes, looking at her with sorrow. If I could trade my life for his, I would. If I could go back and stand in his place, I would, but I cannot, and so I carry him. Every breath I take is a debt to him. The elder's tears shone in the sunlight. But this time her voice was soft with warmth. Then carry him not as guilt, but as love. Carry him not as a weight, but as a light. Because if he gave you the ring, it was not to punish you, it was to keep himself alive through you. The human's throat tightened, his chest burning, the words struck deeper than any wound. The elder reached forward, placing her hand gently over the ring. Do you not see, human? He chose you. He trusted you. In his final moment he gave you. More than his ring, he gave you his legacy. The human's breath caught, his knees weakened. For the first time since that night he felt something shift inside him. The chains did not vanish, but they loosened. The market crowd bowed their heads in silence, respect glowing in their eyes. The elder whispered, You have carried my son longer than I did. You carried him through your pain. And now you carry him to me? The human looked at her, his voice breaking. Then let me give him back. He slid the silver ring slowly from his finger, his hands trembling, his heart heavy, and as the metal left his skin, it felt as though years of pain lifted with it. The elder's hands shook as he placed it into her palms, her tears falling onto the silver band. She pressed it to her chest, whispering her son's name, and the market filled with a silence so sacred even the wind seemed to pause. The elder's hands shook as she held the ring against her chest, her tears soaking the silver. The crowd around her stood frozen, their eyes wide, their voices silent. For a long moment she said nothing, only wept quietly, whispering the name of her son like a prayer. The human stood before her, his shoulders heavy, his eyes lowered, afraid to meet her gaze. At last, the elder lifted her head, her voice breaking but filled with power. "This is proof," she said, "proof that my son's memory lived, proof that even in death he was not forgotten." The crowd murmured, their hearts moved. Some bowed their heads, others touched their foreheads with respect. The human swallowed hard, his throat dry. "I only carried it because I could not let it go, but it belongs to you. It was always yours?" The elder looked at him through her tears, her lips trembling. "No, human, it belonged to him and he chose you." The words struck him harder than any blow. He raised his head slowly, confusion in his eyes. "He chose me?" "Yes," the elder whispered, her voice filled with both grief and strength. "My son was brave, but he was not foolish. He would not give away his final treasure to a stranger without reason. If he gave it to you, it means he saw something in you. Something even you cannot see." The human froze, his mind struggling to accept her words. The elder reached out, her trembling fingers brushing his hand. "Do you not understand? By carrying his ring, you carried his spirit. By carrying his words, you carried his duty. You were not only a witness, you became part of his story." Gasps spread through the market. The aliens whispered among themselves, some in awe, some in disbelief. The human shook his head slowly. "I was no warrior, I was no leader, I was nothing but a survivor. How could he have seen anything in me?" The elder's tears shimmered in the sunlight. "Because sometimes it is the broken who carry the strongest light. Sometimes it is the one who survives who is meant to tell the story. My son did not see a coward. He saw someone worthy of his last gift." The words burned into the human's heart. His chest tightened, and for the first time he felt his burden shifting. No longer just guilt, but something deeper. The elder gripped the ring tightly in her palm, her voice shaking. "For years I thought I was alone, but now I see I was never alone because you carried him through your pain, through your silence. You kept him alive, and that means you are tied to me, human. You are tied to my blood." The human's eyes widened. The words felt unreal. "Tied to you?" he whispered. "Yes," she said firmly. "You are part of him, and through him, you are part of me. We are bound by grief, by memory, by love. You and I, we are family now." The market erupted in whispers, some shocked, some moved. The idea of an alien elder calling a human family was unthinkable, and yet in that moment it felt undeniable. The human's throat closed, his voice low and trembling. "Family. I never thought I would hear that word again." The elder's face softened, her eyes kind despite the tears. "Then let this bond heal us both. Let us carry him together, no longer as burden, but as legacy." The human's eyes filled with tears. He bowed his head, his voice breaking. "Then I will honor him, and I will honor you as long as I live." The elder lifted her chin, her voice rising so the market could hear. "This human is no stranger. He is no outsider. He is the one who carried my son's memory, and for that he will be treated with respect." The crowd gasped, some nodded. Others lowered their eyes in shame for how they once looked at the human. The elder turned back to him, her trembling hand resting on his shoulder. "Do not carry this as shame anymore. Carry it as a promise, because my son chose you, and now, so do I." The human's knees weakened, his chest heavy with emotion. The weight of years seemed to lift, the chains of guilt loosening, replaced with something new, something warmer. He whispered softly, "Then I am not alone." The elder smiled faintly through her tears. "No, human, you were never alone. Not while you carried him." The market stood still, the sun casting long shadows, the people watching with hearts moved. The story of one human and one alien had become something greater, something that touched them all. And as the elder held the ring close, and the human bowed his head beside her, it was clear to all that a new bond had been forged, one stronger than war, one born from grief but turned into hope. The elder held the ring tightly, her wrinkled hands trembling as if afraid it might vanish. Her tears fell on the silver, each drop shining in the light like tiny stars. The human stood close, his chest heavy, watching her cling to the last piece of her son. For a long time neither spoke. The market around them stayed silent. No trade, no shouts, only the sound of the elder's quiet sobs and the wind moving through the stalls. Finally, the elder lifted, her head, her eyes red, but her voice steady. This ring was his, and it was yours for many years, but now, it must return home. The human shook his head quickly, fear flashing in his eyes. No, elder, it belongs to you, it was always yours. It is your memory, your blood, your treasure. But she tightened her grip, her voice sharp yet kind. And, for all these years, you carried it when I could not. You kept it safe when I had nothing but emptiness. You gave me back his words, his last breath, his promise. Now let me give you something in return. The human blinked, confused. Return? What could you give me? The elder smiled faintly, though her face was lined with grief. I can give you release. You carried him in silence, in pain, in guilt, but no more. It is time for you to breathe again. It is time for you to live without chains. The human's throat tightened, his hands trembled. But if I let go, I will lose him. The elder shook her head. No, you will not lose him, because he lives in both of us now. He lives in every word you carried, in every day you survived. And now in the truth you have spoken aloud, he is no longer a secret, he is a light. The crowd stirred, some wiping their eyes, others nodding in agreement. The human stared at the elder, his eyes wet. She slowly extended the ring back toward him, her hands shaking but firm. Take it, human. Take it not as guilt, but as a gift, not as chains, but as family. The human froze, staring at the silver band glimmering in her palm. For years it had been a burden, a wound, but now in her hand it seemed different, lighter, brighter. His voice cracked. You would return it? To me? Yes, she said firmly. Because my son trusted you and I must honor his choice. If he placed it in your hand, then it was never stolen, never borrowed. It was given. It was meant for you, and you must accept it. The market gasped softly, many whispering in awe. No alien elder had ever given such a gift to a human. No symbol so sacred had ever crossed the line of blood and species. The human's heart pounded, his hands shaking as he reached forward, slowly closing his fingers around the ring, his voice breaking. Then I will take it, not for myself, but for him, for you, for the memory of what was lost. The elder smiled, through her tears, and for what was found. The human slid the ring back onto his finger, but this time it did not burn like fire. This time it did not weigh him down. Instead it felt warm. It felt alive, as if the soldier's spirit had finally found peace within him. The elder touched his hand gently, her voice soft. Do you feel it now? It is no longer a burden, it is a bond. The human bowed his head, whispering, Yes, I feel it. The market exhaled, as if they had all been holding their breath. Some traders wept quietly, others placed hands over their hearts. The story unfolding before them had become more than a private moment. It was a lesson, a reminder that grief could become hope, that even across species, family could be forged. The elder's voice rose, though weak with age. This human carried my son when I could not. He carried his words, his memory, his soul, and now I return his gift to him so that my son may live on through both of us. The human's eyes widened, his throat tight. Both of us, he repeated softly. Yes, she whispered. You and I together, bound by him. The human looked around, the faces of aliens staring back at him, no longer with suspicion or fear, but with respect, even reverence. For the first time, he did not feel like an outsider. For the first time, he felt he belonged. The elder leaned closer, whispering in his ear, Do not fear any more. My son's blood runs in my veins, but his spirit runs in yours, and now I see him every time I look at you. The human's eyes blurred with tears. He could not speak, his voice stolen by emotion. The elder stepped back, holding her chest, whispering her son's name once more. and then looking at the human with a smile that was both broken and healing. The market remained silent, the moment carved into their memories, the day a human returned a fallen soldier's story, and an alien elder gave it back as love. The market stood in silence, the ring shining faintly on the human's hand once more, the elder's words still hanging in the air. Her tears glistened on her cheeks, but her smile, fragile and full of love, was what held the people's hearts. The human felt weak in his knees, his chest heavy with a storm of emotions. For years he had carried the weight of guilt, the endless whisper that he should have died instead, but now, for the first time, that voice began to fade. The elder stepped closer, her hand reaching out, trembling as it touched his cheek. The crowd gasped softly. Such a gesture was rare, almost unthinkable, but she did not care. "My son gave you his last breath, and for many years you carried it as a wound," she whispered. "But now I give you something he could not. I give you forgiveness." The word struck the human harder than any blade. His eyes blurred, his throat tightened, and he dropped to his knees before her, tears streaming down his face. "I don't deserve it," he cried, his voice breaking. "I failed him. I failed you. I lived while he did not. How could I deserve your kindness?" The elder shook her head, her tears falling as she bent down to him. "No, human. You did not fail him. You honored him. You carried him when no one else could. And because of you, I know he did not die forgotten. Because of you, I know he remembered me. And that is everything a mother could ask." The human lowered his head, sobbing, the ring glimmering through the tears on his hand. The crowd stood stunned, their hearts moved beyond words. Some wept openly, others bowed their heads in respect. The market that once felt divided by blood, and species now felt united by grief and hope. The elder lifted her voice, though weak with age, it carried with strength. "This human is not my enemy. He is not a stranger. He is my family, chosen by my son, bound to me by memory, by sacrifice, by love." The words rolled through the market like thunder. The crowd whispered, their voices shaking. No elder had ever spoken such words about a human before. The human raised his head, his eyes full of tears. "Family," he whispered again as if trying to believe it. "Yes," the elder said firmly. "Family. And family must not live in chains of guilt. Family must live in light. And you will too." She pulled him to his feet, holding his hands tightly, her strength surprising despite her frail body. The crowd watched in silence, many wiping their eyes. The human breathed shakily. "Then I will carry him not as shame, but as love. I will carry him as light, as you said, and I will not let his memory fade." The elder nodded, tears still streaming. "That is all I ask. That is all he would have wanted." A long silence followed, heavy but peaceful. And then something strange happened. One by one, the aliens in the crowd stepped forward, each bowing their heads toward the human. A merchant whispered, "We honor your burden," a guard muttered. "We honor his sacrifice." A child cried softly, "We honor your bond." The human's chest swelled, his heart pounding. The weight he had carried alone was no longer his alone. The crowd had taken part of it, the elder had taken part of it, and for the first time, he did not feel crushed. The elder smiled through her tears. "You see, human, forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is the bridge between sorrow and hope. You carried sorrow, now let me give you hope." The human closed his eyes, his lips trembling. "Then I accept, and I thank you, not just for forgiveness, but for calling me family." The elder drew him into her arms, embracing him tightly, her frail body shaking against his. The human froze for a moment, then returned the embrace. The crowd gasped again, for the sight of an alien elder and a human locked in such a bond was something no one had ever seen. The market filled with tears, not of grief alone, but of healing, of understanding, of forgiveness shared. When they pulled apart, the elder pressed her forehead to his, gently whispering, "Carry him with love, not pain, and I will carry you as my own." The human nodded, his tears falling, his heart no longer chained. The ring glimmered in the sunlight, no longer a weight of guilt, but a promise fulfilled, a bridge between two souls, two families, two worlds, and, as the elder stood beside him, her eyes still wet but her spirit unbroken, the market knew they had witnessed something that would be remembered for generations. The day a human returned not just a ring, but a son's legacy, and in return, received tears, forgiveness, and a family he never thought he would have.